you know how you become the 5 people you surround yourself with the most?
Yeah, yeah.
For an artist, I feel like you morph into the 5 artists you listen to the most.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
my inspirations and influences have changed a lot over the years.
Mhm.
I feel like what makes you as an artist unique is your unique combination of influences.
Mm.
Because I listen to a lot of jazz, R&B, soul artists,
Yeah.
but I'm from Kentucky, so I actually have bluegrass roots and
Yeah.
folk roots. And I grew up on Dolly Parton and the Judds
Yeah.
and Alison Krauss. So I've got this interesting blend, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's what's uniquely me.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Alise Koa, and this is a podcast from musicians for musicians where we get to share our experiences and stories with each other. Here we unite and empower one another through mindset, music, and happiness. This is a safe place for independent musicians, so enjoy.
Level up in my bubble bath crown, broken back in my head in the clouds. But what
So
a
welcome to the Musician Secrets
wonderful
podcast. Today I have a singer-songwriter from Kentucky with me today. Everyone, please welcome Piper Madison.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for being on. I've been listening to your album over and over again. I've also listened to your, because this is your second album. It came out October
Yeah.
5th, right? If I remember.
This is my sophomore album.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, because you brought out 2019, you brought out your first debut album. Wait.
Yeah, it's called Who's Running Your Mind?
Who was running your mind? I love the cover art, by the way.
Thank you. That was a collaboration with my friend who's an artist. His name's Max Hust. And I had this idea in a dream about an exposed brain and exposed heart. And he came and did all those doodles.
No way.
It was really a fun collab.
That's so cool. So you're like, oh, this is my idea. And then he just did it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's cool. I wish I could. I just admire people that can just like draw something like and it looks good.
I know.
You know,
He's so talented.
Wow. When I draw something, it just looks like a 5-year-old. Like, true.
Well, that's art still. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, that's that. Yeah, so like these albums both are just not very different because they still sound like with how do I explain this? They sound like they go together, but one is more like rock and the other one it feels more jazzy.
Exactly. That's what I was going for. I've taken a turn genre-wise a little bit.
Yeah.
But the concepts build off of each other from the first album to the second album.
Oh, nice. Okay, because I wanted to know if that was like on purpose or by accident, but cool. Yeah, but before we jump into that, just for those people don't know who you are, run us through your music journey. Like, where did it start? And basically take as much time as you want because you have enough time to where you are now.
I actually started as an actress. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and then when I was 9, my whole family and I moved to LA for my sister and I to pursue acting, and they've always been super supportive of that. So I'm really grateful for my family because I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without them.
Yeah.
So went to LA, age 9, acting, and then in between booking roles and working in acting, I started picking up music, and I've always been surrounded by music since I was little. I mean, when I was a baby, my mom would play the banjo and my dad would write songs on the guitar. So I've always been surrounded by it. Yeah. And then when I was 12, I started songwriting, and that's when I really knew that I wanted to pursue music as a career. I just fell in love with songwriting. And then I started recording my songs when my dad started interning at a studio in LA. And he interned there for several years and then taught me everything he knew about recording. And we produced my first album together, which came out in 2019.
That's so special.
Yeah, it's a whole family thing. We all work together and we enjoy it.
Wow, cool. I did not expect that. That's a journey.
It's been a journey, yeah. And then last year, we all moved back to Kentucky together during the pandemic
Yeah.
because there was no air travel going on and we missed family because we used to come back in the summers anyways.
Yeah.
So now we're back and I finished my second album here in our home studio in Kentucky.
Nice.
It's been a crazy journey.
Wow. So you're just like, oh, we're just gonna build a home studio here. We're just gonna record.
Pretty much. We took an old craft room in our house here, and we moved our entire studio from LA, drove across the country with all of our equipment, and just put it in the craft room.
Wow.
Yeah. I've got a makeshift vocal booth up there. It's where I finished all the harmonies on this album.
Crazy. I love it.
It's been wild.
Those are some very supportive parents.
It's beyond. I got super lucky. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. My parents were definitely, they're supportive.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it took them a while to kind of warm up to the idea that was like, this is what I'm doing full time. And they're like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And then
my parents are also very creative people, and so they like it too. They enjoy making projects, producing.
That helps for sure. When they're when they understand, it's
right.
Different when you're like, oh yeah, cool, my kids want to do this too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of people thought we were crazy when we decided to move to LA for acting originally.
Yeah.
But we didn't really care.
Well, you don't, like, that's the thing, is like once you start listening to all that negativity and the people around you and and I got depressed because I'm like, okay, well, people expect this from me, but your heart is pulling you in a completely different direction, and when you try to please everyone else but yourself, you'll be unhappy. And I had to learn the hard way, but
yeah, honestly, you can't live your life by other people's expectations.
No. Amen to that. Yeah, that's for sure. So when did that shift happen? Because 12 is like really early, where like, songwriting boom, like let's go. Like what was there, like a moment where you're like you were writing the song, you're like, I love this, I want to do this for the rest of my life? Or was there like what was the push?
There were several moments like that on my songwriting journey. Yeah. I actually started songwriting though because I had a friend who committed suicide, and I was just really sad, and it was unexpected. And I was just sitting at my piano, just playing around, and a song came out of me, and I didn't know that I was writing a song until it was a full song.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, I just wrote a song. Yeah. Didn't know I could do that. And obviously my songwriting's gotten better since I was 12, but at that moment, that was
right?
What?
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. So I had just something that sent an emotion through me, and from emotions we get inspiration.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I'm gonna be writing this down. Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing, is like, the first song I really wrote about my dog, but like the one like right after was also, I had a friend pass away, and I started when I was 12 as well. It was a really unfortunate accident, and so songwriting was something also that helped me through that, where I like really selfishly started writing for me. But then the funny thing is, like, once you share music and you play it and people then connect to that, they're like, oh, I feel the same way. I'm like,
right.
Like, what?
Music is very healing. I've always been fascinated by music therapy because it displays the healing properties of music. It's totally amazing.
Yeah. It's crazy what like music does in your brain and how it affects your body. And I mean,
yeah, it's beautiful. And it's something that connects everyone around the world.
Totally agree. It's music is just amazing.
It's the best.
But yeah, so then first, 2019, your first album you recorded with your dad, right?
Yeah, we recorded it together, produced it together.
That's so cool. And now 2021, you also produced this one with your dad, or did you have like other people involved, like multiple producers, or was it just like also like family?
We sort of produced it the same way. We tried some different things with mixing and mastering because we like to experiment all the time.
Yeah.
But I sort of took over production on this because I had such a vision for this album.
Yeah.
So my dad helped me a lot with mixing,
Yeah.
and I did a lot of the editing myself, just in my zone.
Dang. So you're like producing as well.
Yeah, I've found that I really like producing because that's what brings the vision to life.
Yeah, it's easier, I think, because you don't have to like communicate to a producer. I think it's so frustrating when you're like, I have the specific idea, and how do I like translate it to the producer that he'll get it out of my head and into the DAW program? You know, it's like
right. Right. And you take accountability for that part of the process when you produce yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. So what inspired the album, like the now album, which is called How Do I Love, right?
How Do I Love? It's honestly a reflection of my own spiritual and emotional journey the past couple years.
Yeah.
I picked up right where I left off on the first album, lyrically and with my songwriting. Yeah. So the first album really explored identity, and I was getting to know myself.
Yeah.
And now in this album, I've come to realize, for me, love is the most powerful thing that I can think of.
Yeah.
And so that's how I live intentionally. I try to do everything from an intention of love.
Yeah.
And that's the perspective shift that I've come to during this album process. And it just builds on how our sense of self affects our relationships, and how the way we love ourselves affects the way we love others. That's what the whole concept is for this album.
Wow, that's deep. I mean, it's really interesting because this album feels more mature, if that makes sense. Like it's the first album is like sassy and like has that rock, and it has like
angsty. Yeah. Well, I was a teenager then, and I'm still a teenager now, but I definitely feel older now, and I feel more mature in some ways.
Yeah.
I'm still like a 12-year-old at heart, but
aren't we all?
Right. Really. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it was definitely because I'm like, I was just listening to the album. I'm like, oh, I need to listen to the first one, because I'm like, I really want to see. I just love to see the artist grow, you know, just to see like where did they start off, or you know, what did they do before. And it was just very interesting to kind of see that, you know, not contrast, because they do sound like they belong together, but like it's like the lyrics are just different. They're they just seem a little bit more mature, right? The other one were like more sassy, and it had like an undertone of very cheeky sometimes. And then with this one, it's like really like you could just really feel like that maturity, that jazz, and the more you know, the background vocals, they were just fuller and happier, and you know, depending on the song, of course, but it just felt, you can just feel that journey. It's really weird.
So much.
That journey you went through.
Yeah, I've definitely grown in my songwriting since then, and I've tried to write more intentionally. Now that I've formed my belief system and had this spiritual awakening, I try to write from an intentional place. Yeah. And before I just wrote from my emotions. And I think that's where the shift happened.
Okay. So like explain like the difference, how you write songs maybe now than when you did with the first album.
With the first album, I didn't have a clear intention when I was writing a song. I would just let it come out of me. Okay. Now, of course, I still do that sometimes, because if I have an emotion, that's my outlet. Yeah. But when I was piecing together this album, I had a clear concept for it. It wasn't just songs that I'd written. It was a message I wanted to convey.
Ooh.
And that message was about loving yourself so you can love others.
Definitely. You could, because there is like, you feel like there's a common thread through it all, right? And
yeah, that's what I was going for. So
yeah.
I'm glad that came through.
Yeah, no, because I mean, I'm a lyric person. I mean, I think as songwriters, we all kind of are.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's always like the first things that kind of pop out to me. And
Right.
we're gonna dive in some of the lyrics in a minute, because
Okay.
what you do is just so amazing. I'm like, how did you come up with this? Like,
thank you. That means a
wow.
lot.
Like, yeah, from a songwriter to songwriter, I'm just like, dang, like this girl is amazing. And that was
Thank
like,
you
there's
so
a reason where
much.
I'm like, oh, I need to have her on the podcast. I want to pick her brain how she does it. Like, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I
So
really appreciate that.
did you have the title name first and then make the album, or like, because you said you had like that clear concept, like what was it, like how did you
I didn't get the title until the last second. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out the title. And it actually came together the same way that the first album title came together.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
The last song of the first album is
Yeah.
called Phonograph, and
Yeah.
the last line of that song is "Who's Running Your Mind," which I ended up using as the title. Just
Exactly.
the last line of the entire album. That's what I called the title.
Yeah.
And then it just so happened that when I was ordering this album, the same thing happened at the end of the album. I had a question: how do I love?
Yeah.
That was the last song on the album.
Exactly.
And I was like, wait a minute. We cannot have a 4-word question at the end of this album, just like we did on the first one, and not call it that question. It just fell into place.
Nice. Yeah, because now that you mention it, it is how you end the album, and then this one as well. So that's
and it just happened to be the exact same way on the first album that title came together. So I thought that was funny. Just a common thread.
Yeah, you'll have to do it now with every album you write. Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
No pressure.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to design them with that in mind. I always have to have a question at the end of the album.
Yeah. So how do you decide what order to put the songs? Because I think that's always the hardest part, is like, okay, let me rephrase that. So when do you write again, so did you already have like, okay, there are 10 songs gonna be on here, and it's gonna have this thread, and then you kind of write the song to the theme that you have? Or is it like the other way around? Like, how does now, okay, because the title happened at the end.
I had all of the songs.
Sense.
I know what you're saying. I had all the songs written and produced before I got the track list down.
Yeah.
So after they had all been mastered and I was like, okay, they're done.
Yeah.
I listened to the way they would flow into each other. So I listened to the end of one song into the beginning of another song, and I just tried it a bunch of different ways. And there were some songs that I knew wanted to go together, just based on, like, I think I put I Found You and Return to Sender near each other because I thought it was funny to find something and then return it.
And then return it, yeah.
Yeah. So I had a couple ideas, and that helped me drive the track list, but finalizing it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to be as close to perfect as possible.
Yeah.
But I've also learned during this journey that there is no such thing as perfect. Sometimes you just gotta let it go.
Yeah, exactly. How do you know? Because I always think this is like the most fascinating questions, is like, you want to get it perfect, but again, perfection doesn't exist, and because then you'll never get it done. But how do you know you're at the point where, like, okay, for where I am now, this is the best I can do, and I need to let it go? Like, how do you find that balance?
To an artist, I don't think a song is ever done.
Yeah, for sure.
Because every time I listen, even on my first album, I'll listen to things and be like, should I change that? But obviously I can't change anything.
Yeah,
And so I've just accepted that that's always going to be a thing for
yeah.
me as an artist. I'm always going to want to tweak things forever until the end of time.
Mhm.
But I think what makes a song done to me is the feeling. If it's got the feeling that I intended it to have when I wrote the song, then it's done.
Wow. Yeah, I think I'm gonna use that as my new guideline. Because,
Cool.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, let me know how that works for you.
Yeah, because that's where I mean, I've written obviously so many songs, but I'm never like I never know what production to put on it, and then I could change my mind again, and then I'm like, oh,
Right.
maybe not, and then and then I never finish, I never do, and that's sad because then they never come out.
And that's the beauty of production. You can take it so many directions.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also the hard part of producing a song.
Yeah.
You can take it in so many directions.
Yeah. It's so how do you find your song sound, and how do you know what production you want on it? Because I mean, again, you went from like rock to like this really jazzy soul alternative vibe. Like it's a change, but it's not like whoa, like you can still hear that they go together, but it's not, but they're still very different from each other. Like what made you shift that genre? It's not really a genre shift, but like they are
It's a different direction a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
You know how you become the 5 people you surround yourself with the most?
Yeah.
For an artist, I feel like you morph into the 5 artists you listen to the most.
Oh,
And so my inspirations and influences have changed a lot over the years. And this album was driven by the sounds of Sade, Tash Sultana, Erykah Badu. So I was listening to a lot of jazz and R&B and soul influences, and I was also listening to some folk and Americana like Joy Williams. But I still have some of the same influences that I did for the first album, like Amy Winehouse and Sia. So that's why it's got some of the same characteristics, but it took a new direction production-wise because I was trying new things based on what I was listening to. And I listened to those artists intentionally because I wanted that sound. And I sought that out for these songs. I've always wanted to do a jazzy album.
Dang.
So I started surrounding myself with more jazzy influenced, soul influenced music so that I could be constantly inspired in that zone.
This is so funny that you mentioned Tash Sultana, because when I listened to the first track, what is it, Blue Sky?
Clear My Blue Sky.
It sounds, I want to push play, I'm like, this sounds like Tash Sultana, and I'm like,
that's
what?
awesome.
Like, just
I love that
up, or because I mean, my husband and I, we love her, and that was like the first concert we went to as a married couple.
Really?
So that's why she has like
concert.
Have you seen her live yet?
I've only watched their videos online.
Oh my gosh, she's on tour right now, at least in Europe. I don't know if she's coming to the US. I don't know, but I follow her on her Instagram. So yeah, she's on tour.
I wanted to see Tash when they came to Louisville because they were going to perform at Forecastle, which is a big festival here, but then it was canceled because of COVID, which
oh my gosh, she is definitely worth watching when she performs live, just with her loop pedals. It blows your freaking mind. You're like, how's this just one person? Like, crazy.
So Tash Sultana was definitely an inspiration for actually how I perform live now, because I got a loop pedal around the same time. I think I got the loop pedal before I found out about Tash Sultana, but then listening to Tash's music just inspired me so much. So I actually designed this album around my looper so that I could perform live with my looper.
Dang, that's so
cool. That's why a lot of the chord progressions are kind of repetitive. It's because I designed it that way so that I could do it live by myself and create my own band.
Wow, that's so funny that you're bringing her up, because usually not a lot of people know her, But it's so funny because
Right.
literally like the first track, it sounds so much like it
Thank you
could be
for
one of
that.
her songs, you know.
Thank you.
But it's still
That's
like
a huge
different. It still
compliment.
has like your vibe on it for sure.
Mhm.
But like just the when you're hearing the chord progression and just the I'm like, am I like, is this the right album? Like
Right.
it's really cool
Thank
that
you for
it's
that.
funny
I'm
that
glad
you're
you could
thinking
hear
about
that influence because it was definitely there.
it. Yeah. Okay, because I'm like, I'm going crazy. I'm
And
hearing Tesh Soldana everywhere.
another influence for that song, all the synths were inspired by Ravina. I don't know if you know Ravina.
No, I don't.
Ravina is so good. She
Right.
has this beautiful R&B music, and she's got all these like singy synths like ding ding ding
Uh-huh.
ding.
Oh, okay, I gotta check her
So
out
I
now.
was trying to capture that on that song too.
Yeah, that's
So my
very,
production
very smart.
my
Sorry.
production is influenced by my inspirations.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think so many artists are scared of doing that. We're like, oh, you don't want to like copyright info. Like, no, it's
Mhm.
okay. Like, just you can get inspiration, just don't
Right.
copy and paste, right? That's not cool. Right.
Honestly,
But
we all build off of each other, I think.
totally,
Because
totally,
when we incorporate other people's ideas with our own, it's a whole new idea.
totally. Yeah. There's even I mean, it's called steal like an artist, right? It's like there is
Right.
there is no original, air quote, original thoughts, because
Right.
you're always inspired by something. And it's like you said, whatever you listen to, that's what's going to come out of you, right? So
Yeah,
like,
and I love giving credit to the people
Yeah.
who have inspired me because
totally, there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think so that's why I think that's the smartest thing, is actually doing that on purpose and being like, okay, I want to
Yeah.
incorporate these people or these influences, and that's totally cool, right? So wow. That's really, really yeah, it was interesting because I could hear those influences, but I'm like,
That's so cool. I
not
love that you could hear the influences because we all have influences.
yeah.
And I feel like what makes you as an artist unique is your unique combination of influences.
Mm,
Because I listen to a lot of jazz, R&B, soul artists,
yeah.
but I'm from Kentucky, so I actually have bluegrass roots and
Yeah.
folk roots. And I grew up on Dolly Parton and the Judds
Yeah.
and Alison Krauss. So I've got this interesting blend, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's what's uniquely me.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It has like a little touch of like country, but not just like a little sprinkle, right? It's like
just a sprinkle.
yeah, but it's like it's definitely mainly like this like really like jazzy alternative pop with like sprinkle of like
Right, a sprinkle of
country.
alt, a sprinkle of
Yeah.
indie pop, a sprinkle of country, a sprinkle of folk.
Yeah, I think that makes the album, for me, made it so interesting, because
Thank you.
I love when they're just whoops like but and when you can hear those different I think for me it's just, as a listener, it makes it interesting when you hear different types of genres kind of come in, even if it's really subtle. All right, you have like a little bit of a blues in there, and then you
because it tells a story about the artist.
Totally, and so that's why I loved the contrast between the two albums.
Thank you.
So let's dive into some lyrics, because I'm very, very excited.
Oh, cool. I love this part.
I'm a lyric nerd, and so I just fell in love with your writing style and what you choose to write about. I think that says a lot about an artist. And that's how I usually pick the artists. Is like, okay, especially if you're a singer-songwriter, I'm like, okay, your songs say a lot about what you think, who you are, and what you want to put out in the world. And so when I was listening to your album, to your songs, I'm like, this girl is amazing. I definitely is someone I would like to just chat with and
Thank you.
pick your brain. So
I'm happy to be here.
The first one, let's kind of go in order. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about every single song.
Yeah.
But one line that, let's start with Pearls.
Pearls. age of denial. You're on your own, but they still treat you like a child. I'm tired of walking through fire, of waiting for some things.
Okay.
That was very interesting. One line that very stood out to me is she wears pearls, but she doesn't feel pretty.
She wears pearls, but she doesn't feel pretty.
I thought that was very fascinating, to like put that concept together. Like, what was it that was that intentional, or was that a line that just kind of came out of nowhere, or
Both.
both?
I did intend to write a hook about at the external forms of beauty and you feeling not lining up with it internally.
Yeah.
Because that was how I was feeling in that moment. That this is my most depressing song I've probably ever written.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really
Thank you. But I didn't at the time know that was the line that was going to come up. It's always an adventure writing a song.
Totally.
Because I can go in it with an idea and then just be surprised by the end. And I try to go in it with the mindset that I will be surprised.
That's how often do you like rewrite lyrics, or are you like, okay, once it comes out, that's how I'm gonna leave it, or you do?
I do go back, and if there's something that's bothering me or that I just put in as a placement holder because I didn't want to get out of the flow, I will go back and try to change those. And I do like getting input from other people. Like my mom helps me a lot with constructive criticism. She tells me the truth, and I appreciate that in the end.
Maybe it doesn't feel
sometimes not in the moment, but in the end, I always appreciate it.
That's good. My mom was just like, "Oh, everything's great." I'm like, "Mom, that's not helpful."
That's funny. I think it's important to have a couple people that you really trust their opinion, and you know they're going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
That's what's helped me get better over the years.
Yeah, I think you need that. I think
you need to be pushed, challenged.
Totally. And I wasn't used to that. So like at university, when I had like all these teachers sitting in front of me and I had to perform my song, I was so nervous.
Yeah.
Those 5 people there made me more nervous than playing for hundreds of people. And
it seems like that's always how it is. I think it's more nerve-wracking to perform for friends and family than it is to perform for strangers.
Yeah.
Because you really care about what your friends and family think of you, and you're like, if they don't like my song, what if they don't like me as a person anymore? But honestly, that sounds crazy when you say it out loud.
Yeah. But it's funny because that fear is in us, right? It's so real, and that sometimes even stops us from like performing or doing something or writing the song or even saying that you wrote the song. Like that was, for me, was a big thing, was even to tell my families like, oh, I wrote this new song, right? So,
but if you look at the people who inspire you, at least the people who inspire me, I look up to them because of their confidence to do that despite fear. So I've spent this journey trying to gain confidence, and I do a lot of journaling and affirmations, and honestly, it's helped so much. I don't really get nervous to talk anymore or to perform anymore. Wow. And I never thought I'd say that. But I thought that everybody would just get nervous forever and there's nothing you could do about it. Because I used to get nervous and then like pretend I wasn't, but I used to get nervous before performing. But the past couple years I just haven't anymore, and I think it's because I've been rooted in my intention, and I've practiced confidence.
Right. I like what you just said, practice confidence. I don't think that I mean, there are some people that do, but I think the majority of artists, they're not born with confidence. We need to create it.
Right. And I believe that we can learn anything we want to learn.
Yeah, for sure.
When I was little, I could not sing. for the life of me. I'm not even going to tell you how many people told me to not sing because I was so bad at it.
Wait, that's so sad.
But it didn't really affect me because I was a kid and I didn't really care what they thought.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay, I'll just get better. And so I practiced every single day for 10 years and I got better.
Wow. That's something my mom said is like, you're not born a songwriter, you become one. Or you're not born an artist, you become one.
Right. I truly believe that we can learn anything we want to learn.
Mm.
And I do think that we're all born with, or maybe we develop this too, a point of view or a perspective.
Yeah.
Well, obviously when we're babies, we're not really born with a point of view because we haven't learned to talk. I'm still exploring my mindset and my perspective. Yeah. I'm literally exploring, like, what do I think of that on this podcast right now?
That's good. I think that's, something that always, I just love to learn. I just always,
Me too.
I like to pick people's brains. I want to know what they know, right? I want to see what's, what they believe in and what's helped them and what's, didn't work as well. I
love learning from other people.
And I think it's the smartest way to learn, right? And so I'm always like wanting to learn, and especially now being like pregnant and being like, okay, how does, everything, like, how does it work? And, how does this human grow? And it's just so fascinating what happens and how our body is made to bring new life into the world. And I'm learning all of that new stuff and how like music and sounds also affects like this own unborn child. And I'm like, wow.
That's so true. My mom used to play the banjo when I was in the womb. And then I come out into the world and I'm a musician today and I play the banjo now.
Right?
That's so funny.
That's what I love about music. It's just like, it's so powerful. It's not just like a job you do. It's actually something that affects you and other people and society. And I think it's so beautiful because we can, everything that we learn, we can put in a song, right? It's like you said, like you realize that, everything's really about love and how you love yourself and other people. And then you created this album, right? Which is super, super cool. So that's why I thought it was really interesting how you brought up like, the pearl concept, like with like that self identity. Cause I'm like, wow, I think there are a lot of people out there that feel like that, where like, oh, I shouldn't be complaining because I have all of this, or, I have these pearls, but it doesn't feel right. I still feel ugly or not good enough or whatnot. And so that's why I thought, I don't know, it was just a line that popped out where I'm like, wow, that's a powerful line. Like, yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad that it has that power that I intended it to have.
Yeah.
Because that was really just how I was feeling when I wrote it.
Yeah.
And I think if you're feeling a certain way and you create something from it, it's going to touch someone else who's feeling the same way.
Yeah, that's true. For sure. Because also, I didn't write this part down, but there's but there's the part where you say, I don't have the pearls, or what is like the line after it is, so I didn't write that part down, but that was a very interesting concept that
in the chorus.
Yeah, because it feels like you're you're wait, I want to get this right. So
the lyric, I think I have the lyrics somewhere.
Pearls, I've got boxes of spin.
Is it in the last chorus where I say like I still carry them with me, that thing?
Yeah, I still carry them with me.
Oh, she wears pearls, but she doesn't feel pretty. Pearls, I still carry them with me.
Yeah, she wears pearls, but she doesn't feel pretty. Pearls, I still carry them with me.
That I did that at the end of the song, right?
Yeah, you did.
That was only the I did that intentionally only at the last chorus because I did the whole song in the third person, and then at the end I wanted to bring it back to me and say, actually, I'm that girl.
I'm like
in this moment.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make it more personal at the end.
Yeah. Totally. And that's why I loved that at the end. And you have another song where you also do that.
It's almost like an admission,
yeah,
an acceptance. This is how I feel. I'm not running away from it anymore.
Yeah. Because
I've found that when you let it be, that's when it changes.
Yeah. I think there's something really amazing when you call yourself out in a song, because usually what we like to do is we like to point fingers when we're writing, because we're like, oh, you broke my heart and it's your fault and you're to blame and blah blah, and we love to point fingers because it's easier. But
I know.
Yeah.
That's something that I've worked on though the past couple of years. While I was writing this album, I practiced self-accountability, and it came out in my writing.
That's so important.
I try not to blame others in songs. I try to be accountable for my own emotions and take my power back over how I'm feeling. And that I wanted to do that in my songwriting for this album because I wanted to inspire other people that they can do that. Yeah,
definitely. You can see that in the lyrics, because you did that in another song where I'm like, you did that at the end again, and I'm like, that's so cool. Because I think that's a very important part that you're bringing up is like accountability. Like, stop blaming other people, even if it's not your fault. It doesn't matter. But as soon as you take responsibility, you can change something. If you just blaming, then you can't change everyone. You can't change anything because you're like, oh, you're to blame, and then you start this downward spiral, and and you're getting nowhere.
Even if it's not your fault, you can still take accountability for how you feel or how you react.
Yes.
And 100%. That's what you can change.
Yeah, that definitely, like, that realization got me from being depressed to being super happy where I am now. Because I'm like, I blamed my depression. It didn't make sense to blame my depression, but I did just because I could, right? And that made it easier because I'm like, oh, I'm in the situation because I'm depressed. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't have to stay here, right? And so once I'm like, I took responsibility, I'm like, that's okay, amazing. Let's change something. Now all of a sudden, really day and night difference. So I think that's very just awesome that you're bringing that up in your songs and lyrics, and that's why I love that line. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. I'm glad it has that effect.
Yes. So you did that. You did that where I noticed it as well with Ruth. You also did that with Ruth. One of these days, I'm gonna make something out of me. Oh, you just wait. I'm gonna break this chain, set somebody free. Also at the end, so people have a little bit of a concept here. I'm just gonna, so in the first verse, you're talking about, I would dye my hair, but that looks already taken, And then, I would dye my hair, but that looks already taken. The water don't. And then you kind of have more comparisons like that. And then you go into the chorus. Oh, one of these days, I'm gonna make something out of me. Oh, you just wait. I'm gonna break this chain, set somebody free. One of these days, I'm gonna make something out of me. Oh, you just wait. I'm gonna break this chain, set somebody free. Oh. And then you go into the second chorus, which is, I want an endless love, but I'm in love with a dead-end guy. I love that line. It's so genius. I want an endless love, but I'm in love with the dead-end guy.
The second verse verse of that song was one of my favorite verses I've ever written.
It's really, I love this line. I'm like, I just have to acknowledge you for that. How, I mean, to come up with that line, like I've never heard that before. I'm in love with a dead end guy. Like, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny because I was talking, I love parallel construction and using that in songs where you take two polar opposites and you use one in the first line, one in the second line, and you use that as a metaphor for whatever you're talking about.
Yeah.
That is my favorite songwriting technique.
Yeah, you definitely see that a lot in your songwriting.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you just talked about that on Instagram and I actually wanted to ask you about it, but you just brought it up. So
that's so funny that we're talking about it because I just made my first video about that I made it on TikTok and then I shared it to Instagram because I love giving songwriting tips out on TikTok. So anybody watching this, if you want some songwriting techniques, I post a ton of them on TikTok.
Oh, okay. What's your TikTok handle?
It's Piper Madison.
Okay, everywhere. Okay.
Piper Madison. That's my handle pretty much everywhere.
Then but at the end, what fascinated me even more, where it was like this moment is at the end, you do it again. You're like, I want to dye my hair to look just like yours, right?
To look just like yours.
Because you open up.
It's a full circle moment.
Exactly. You open up the song with, you know, I would dye my hair, but that look's already taken. And then at the end, you're again like calling yourself out, which I love. And you say, I want to dye my hair to look just like yours. So
I just wanted to be really pure and honest and authentic in this album. So that's what I did with my lyrics. I didn't hide anything.
No. I think that's why I just love this album so much, because I'm like just digging into like the lyrics and I can just see how much intention you put in there. And you could definitely like see like the themes and, you know, the parallel construction and like just, you know, just again, like I'm in love with a dead end guy, like just coming up with new phrases that you're not used to usually, right? And just like the story concept period. Like it's just amazing. Like how long does it take you to write a song like this?
20 minutes for a first draft, and then you know, the entire producing time where I'm second guessing everything. And then I don't really change anything. Honestly, a lot of my finalizing of lyrics is just making sure I like them. It's not necessarily even changing anything. It's just thinking about all the possibilities and then coming back to the first one.
It usually is the best. Usually I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not sure. But then when you come back to it, you're like, oh, well, actually.
Right. Because I think we have intuition.
Yeah. When
it comes to creating. And with intuition, usually your first guess is right.
Yeah. I think we start doubting ourselves because like, oh, it's not good enough. And then we second guess and we're like, oh,
and that usually comes from comparing.
Exactly. Totally.
Which is what that song Ruth is actually all about. It's about comparing yourself to someone that you idolize.
Yeah, well, that's why at the end I love how you close the song, which kind of goes full circle again. Is like, you know, I want to be like her, basically. So I thought that was just so. I just love surprises. I just love when a song becomes unpredictable. I like to put it in my bridge. Usually, I like to like completely twist the song.
I love that.
And give it like a pretty much different direction where you think.
Oh, I love that.
When you think the song is about something like very specific, and then in the
you look at it in a new light in the bridge.
Yeah, or towards the end. I love when that happens, and so I'm like, oh, she did it again. Like
Oh.
But let's jump back a track. There was one of my favorite songs. I mean, I can't say favorite songs because they're all but I just love the I told you I'm gonna go deep on the album.
I love it. I love it.
But the concept I thought was so sweet because it's a little bit more lighthearted, and I love the production on the song for Bubble Bath Beach.
Level up in my bubble bath crown, broken back in my head in the clouds. But what a wonderful view. Me and you in a bubble tattoo. We got a
Bubble.
Oh, thank you. The
Bubble.
production of that was so much fun. I
It
produced.
sounds fun. It sounds like so much fun.
That was one of the first songs that I built the drums. I built the song around the drums
Okay.
because I wrote that. Well, actually, hold on. Backtracking. I wrote the song on my looper with a cool jazz progression that I stumbled upon
Uh-huh.
and the drums. And I was like, oh, this sounds like I should be on a beach,
Yeah.
on an island, floating around,
Yeah.
having a good time. And so I wrote a song literally about just my imagination going wild and living on beach life, right?
Yeah.
So I formed the production around that guitar progression and the drums, and it
Nice.
became super funky.
Yeah. Sorry, I have hiccups. So excited, I'm getting hiccups. No, because I just love, because it's a little bit more lighthearted and
Yeah.
just because I love songs that talk about serious things. Just because I think there should be more songs that kind of talk about things that are usually not really talked about. And so it's nice to have like a song in the album that's a little bit more fun and lighthearted and has this really cool, like again, this concept, this contrast of reality and then totally made up fantasy, or not fantasy, but like
Pretty much.
word.
I like to think of, if you've seen Mary Poppins, that
Yeah.
part where they go underwater and they're just experiencing this surreal fantasy come to life.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted this song to be.
Totally. I can totally see that now. It makes so much sense because I think this would be a really fun music video to me. Is there
I
one?
know. I had so many ideas for the music video. I can't wait to do, where you're sitting in a bubble bath and then you go underwater and you come back out and it's an ocean.
Oh,
That's what I was envisioning when I wrote this.
nice. Yeah, I can't wait for the music video now.
Thanks.
But yeah, again, to like highlight your lyrics, because I think they're genius. I'm looking down because I have my notepad here. I'm not like trying to like ignore you. But I don't know if this is the first. I think this is in the second verse where you say, "I float around in the ceramic tub, but in my mind, I'm in Bora Bora, champagne on ice."
I float around in my ceramic tub, but in my mind I'm in Bora Bora, sipping champagne on ice.
Right, and then you just paint these beautiful pictures of like these comparisons, right? And then what I love in the bridge part, where it has a little bit of a twist, or you kind of still bring in that message, which I think is really really cool, is see, it's more than a dream, it's a way of life. No time to come down, it's a state of mind. I finally found troubles out of sight. It's suddenly clear, imagination heightened. And I like it up here. I like it up here. So
It's a way of life, no time to come down. It's a state of mind. I finally found troubles out of sight. It's suddenly clear, imagination heightened. I like it up here, like it up here, like it up here. I like it up here, like it up here.
I thought that it's still, even though it's a very light-hearted song, you still put a message in there, and I thought that was really cool to like
Thank you.
put a little bit of a twist in there.
I tried to paint a picture with some of the more literal concepts, like champagne on ice, Bora Bora. The funny part is I've never been to Bora Bora, and I'm 19, so I don't drink. So
what? I don't drink.
Oh, cool! Woo! We're the same boat.
Yeah. Never have, never will. Yeah.
Love it. I mean, if you do drink, that's cool too.
Yeah.
But no judgments here.
No.
But I took things that really were just me imagining. I haven't exactly experienced them except for in my head.
Yeah.
But the bridge getting more real.
Right?
And the metaphor of it is that it's just as real if you're experiencing it in your head.
Totally. So how did you come up with the concept? Like what, like you kind of touched upon that like at the beginning, but like what was like, okay, I'm gonna just come up with this imaginary world, but then kind of tie in kind of this concept of, it's also a reality, it's a way of life, right?
Let's see, how did I come up with that part? I remember the exact moment where this song was born. I was in my bedroom playing with my looper, just programming guitar progression and coming up with a weird drum beat on my drum simulator. And I was like, oh, this is groovy. Yeah. And the sun was shining through my windows. I was wearing my flowy pants that I love. And I had a bunch of big rings on, really feeling myself. And I came up with the first line, lathered up in my bubble bath crown, broken back with my head in the clouds. Yeah. But what a wonderful view.
Lathered up in my bubble bath crown, broken back in my head in the clouds. But what a wonderful view.
And that was all I had for the song for like 2 weeks. I couldn't figure out what else to do with it because I didn't, when you have something that you like and you don't want to mess it up. Yeah. So you just leave it in a little box with a little bow on it. Yeah. That's what I did with the song. And then I sat down and I said, write something. You cannot just let this line live here alone. Yeah. And it worked. Sometimes that doesn't work and I just end up scrapping it. But for this song, I guess I did have a message and it came through that day.
Well, I'm glad it did because I love it. It's just the production is just like really, you feel like you're like this beach vibe and so I'm all about a good beach vibe. So
me too.
What is something that like music has taught you about life? I think it's very interesting.
I learn something new in every song I write because when I'm writing, I try to capture the moment. Mm-hmm. And I think that reflects how I try to live too. I try to live in the moment and I just try to be present. Yeah. And music has taught me how to do that, especially when I'm singing live. I'm so present in the moment that I'm not worried about the future or the past. I'm just singing. Wow. And that I get into a state of flow that cannot be broken. It's why I love what I do. Dang.
Yeah, it's I think it feels really good when you're in that flow motion,
I think that's how you've found your passion. If you can get into that flow and just be so present in the moment when you're doing something and then it comes naturally. It's not forced. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Well, that's definitely when you're on like the right track.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, I think, I don't know. It's because people always see it so separate. It's like, oh, I'm a musician or this is music and this is my life. And this is, I'm like, I mean, yeah, but no.
You're also a person who having experience, you draw from that in your music.
Yeah, I think for me, at least, it's hard to kind of disconnect the two.
Me too.
And so I think once I tried to disconnect that, I think that's why I got depressed because I'm like, it is a part of me. So why would you want to, take that away?
And well, it probably loses the passion when you try to disconnect it, because you write from your own experiences a lot of times. Even if you're writing another story that hasn't literally happened to you, it usually, you felt those emotions and you're coming from a place where you understand.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think I love writing a song from someone else's perspective.
That is so much fun to do.
Yeah.
Because we get to practice, compassion and empathy while we're creating.
Right.
I love doing that.
I love it because you get to kind of leave yourself behind and like literally get to be someone else, be
you
like
step into someone else's shoes. That's what I love about acting too.
Yeah, like acting, definitely, like you can't be yourself, right, when you're acting
Absolutely.
out someone else. So like in some way,
I mean, somewhat you can put yourself into the character, but you're still inserting yourself into a circumstance that's someone else's.
Yeah, for sure. What's some advice that you would like to give people and musicians that are listening right now, because you definitely know a lot about songwriting, even though I don't care, like don't like to say like you're too young or you're too old and stuff like that. I think we can all learn from each other no matter
I think so too.
what our age is. So I just see you as I just fell in love with your songs first, and then I reached out and got to know you, and I'm like, you're no way 19, like how this is so cool. What would your advice be for everyone that's listening?
Get to know yourself on a really deep level. That's what changed my whole life. I made an attributes list and connected all of my attributes of myself and how I viewed myself to memories, and just really defined myself on paper, because no one else can define you, only you can define you. And once you have a grasp on who you want to be, you can start being that person.
Wow. Are you sure you're only 19, girl?
Oh. You're so sweet.
That is some deep, amazing stuff.
Thank you.
That's very powerful. What you just said is like, nobody can define you but yourself, right? And I think that's what it kind of brings back to your pearl concept, is like, people can tell you you're beautiful, and your husband can, and your boyfriend can, and your family can, but if you don't feel that, if you don't identify with that, then
you're not going to hear them.
Exactly. And that Tony Robbins says that a lot. He's like, there are models out there, everyone thinks they're so beautiful, but they don't feel beautiful. And then there are people out there where we're like, oh, they're what does average looking even mean? But they have such a confidence.
They have confidence.
Everyone's like, wow, look at that girl, look at that guy, look at this person. Like,
exactly. Because it's really, beauty is an energy.
Yeah.
And you can radiate despite or in addition to, or it doesn't matter how you look on the outside, you can radiate the same energy as someone that you think is more beautiful than you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely, if you let it in, then that's what's going to define you. Because like, some people can be like, oh, you're never going to make it as a musician, and you're just and tell you this in your entire life, and you can either take that fuel and be like, I'll show you, like, I'll prove you wrong, or you can take it, or like you did with your singing, like, or like, oh, you can't sing, and then you're like, well, then I'll just get better. Right? Like, that's like the perfect example. And I hope everyone that's listening is really going to take this to heart, because that is very important. It's like, nobody else but you can define you. It doesn't matter what people say, positive or negative. If you let it in, then that's who you become. And
and everyone spits around the term, be yourself, but I think you have to know yourself to be yourself. And what really helped me start living authentically and writing with intention was getting to know myself.
Dang. Yes. Yeah. Perfect. I think I'm just gonna end it there because this is so good. I have one closing question that I like to ask everyone on this podcast, and that is, what makes a good song for you?
The message.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that make a good song. Structure, lyrics, a good hook, but I think in the end, if you can feel it in your soul, then you've done what you set out to do.
Dang. Yeah, you can definitely feel that in your songs and your albums and the music you're putting out there.
Thank you so much.
If you haven't noticed yet, I'm a huge fan. I love your lyrics. I love your music.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for putting out
that means the world to me.
Music. Yeah, again, the music we write just reflects that. And so when I heard the album and your songs, I'm like, I just need to meet this person because she seems like she's really cool. So
I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on the show.
So yeah, thank you for your time. I went a little over, I'm sorry. So I
don't even know what time, I wasn't even looking at a clock.
I have a clock right in front of me because once I start talking about music,
time stops. There's no time anymore.
No sense of time. So that's why I do want to respect your time, and because,
thank you.
I think time is very important, very valuable, so I want to respect that. But I just want to acknowledge you for everything you're doing and keep going. And I'm waiting for that music video.
Keep an eye
out. But for everyone that wants to check you out, wants to listen to your music, where can they go and find you?
My new album's available on all the platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, Tidal, pretty much everything you can think of. And you can just type in "How Do I Love" by Piper Madison and check it out. Or there's a link in my bio for all my social medias, and on social media I am at Piper Madison everywhere.
Yeah. And
I post a lot on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, so you can check me out and follow me for updates.
TikTok. You have a website too?
Oh yeah, and my website is pipermadison.com. And I post lots of updates, and you can get the album there too.
Yeah. Okay. I think I think you have everything. I'm like, what am I forgetting? It's
yeah, pretty much just type in Piper Madison and you can find something. There's stuff comes up.
No, I had no trouble finding you. So
I try to make things accessible for people. Yeah. I try to, make my name as consistent as possible on all the platforms. Yeah. So if you just type in Piper Madison, you'll find me.
Perfect. Yeah. I'll link everything up down below as well, so people will have absolutely no excuse not to look you up and not be able to find you. In the show notes or wherever you're watching, listening to this, just in the description box or the show notes down below, everything's linked up there. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Seriously.
I hope. I try to make it, more interactive, and
I loved it. I loved talking with you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Musician Secrets podcast. I appreciate your time because you could literally be doing a bazillion other things right now, but you're here with me, so thank you. If you want, you can scroll all the way to the bottom and leave a comment on how you're liking the podcast, what you've learned, and things you've even implemented that have helped you out. As a little thank you, I put together a free members area with all my best resources, books, podcasts, and online courses about everything you need to know as an independent musician, from producing to songwriting to marketing to building a home studio, all the good stuff. All you have to do is either click the link below or go to alisekoa.com/free. I'll see you on the other side. Bye.